Hey guys, it's a new year and that means we have a new Sony camera to look at. This time it's going to be the A7 IV versus the A7 III. Last year I compared the A7 III to the A7S III, and if you'd like to watch that video, it's in my library. Now, just kind of to preface this video, both cameras are going to be shooting pretty much identical setup. In these shots it's going to be 1080p in manual mode, shooting at 120 frames a second. I'm going to have my shutter speed at 1/250th, and both these file formats are going to be 4208-bit. The lens I am using is my Tamron 28-75 f2.8. All of these shots are going to be shot in f2.8 at 28mm. No picture profile was used on any of the bodies, and no creative look was used as well. So as we're kind of jumping through the ISO range here, ISO 1600, it looks very close. Even at 3200, the only thing I'm seeing that's slightly different is that the white balance readout on the A7 IV is slightly orangish versus the yellow that you see on the A7 III. That could be because of the new light sensor that they've included in the front and the reworking of Sony's color science, which is supposed to be more skin accurate now. At ISO 6400, you can definitely see the noise dancing in the back there in the sync. If you look at the readout of the letters to the left, the 4 seems to be a little bit blurry. I'm not sure if that's because the continuous autofocus is being set or it's applying something. At ISO 12800, both images are pretty noisy. You can definitely see the grain. It's not noticeable at all. The candle itself, I would see that the dynamic range is pretty identical. You're not seeing the hot wax or anything like that. At 25600, both of these files are, I'm going to say, at the end of the usable limit. You could convert it to black and white or something, but the noise is just pretty crazy now. And still, again, the A7 IV seems to have a different white balance readout. And at 51200, what's interesting is that I can't really tell if it's the white balance readout that's causing the noise to be less visible in the A7 IV, but in the A7 III you can definitely see the noise all in the corners and just everywhere, but because of the colors in the A7 IV, it doesn't seem so evident. Now we're at 102400, which is the expandable and the end of the usable limit for both of these bodies. I want to say that the noise is definitely more noticeable in my A7 III. It is noticeable in the A7 IV, but because of that color, it kind of hides the noise. Both these files are definitely unusable.
Okay, I actually had to come back and re-record this second portion for the 4K files, because after I exported, it was very interesting to see the exported footage looked very different from the preview window, so the results are completely different. So starting off, both of these cameras are now shooting in 4K at 24 frames a second. I am using a shutter speed of 1/50th. The A7 III, however, is going to be shooting in 4208-bit, and the A7 IV is going to be shooting in 42210-bit. I'm again using 28mm on my Tamron 28-75 f2.8. No picture profile or creative looks were used for this, so this is just shooting with the standard straight out of body colors. Again, with the A7 III, you're going to notice a slight crop because you're not getting that full readout like the A7 IV does. And once again, I think due to just that new white balance sensor in the front, the colors are just going to be slightly different on the A7 IV, so it has almost this greenish tinge to it compared to that of the A7 III. And although the A7 III does have very high quality 4K that's downsampled from a higher resolution, I think one of the interesting things to note is that the A7 III, when you start to get to these high ISOs like 12800, the fine details like in the letters start to come apart in these low light or high ISO situations. Whereas on the A7 IV, it's an even higher downsampling. So the quality does seem to retain a little bit better. So the 24 just looks a little bit sharper as you crank up these ISOs.
Come on, what do you say?
And I'm wondering now if that green tinge comes from possibly the 10-bit file instead of the 8-bit, so I'll possibly re-record this in the future, both running 8-bit to see if the color changes at all. And this last one coming up should be the ISO limit for both of these bodies.
Whoa, you must play a lot of video
And you can really see, again, the noise from both files, but I think the quality seems a little bit sharper in the A7 IV. If you guys like these type of videos, you can find more and I'll try to make more. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.
Look on the bright side, a lot of people are completed